Should we be striving to be strong, independent women? Should we be raising our daughters to be strong, independent women? This is the question I want to tackle in today's video, and some of it might tweak you or feel a bit confronting. You might feel that resistance rise up within you, but I just want to guide you to try the ideas on for size, see if they fit for you. This is Hi Fam, I'm Avital. Welcome. I'm so excited you're here because one of my greatest passions is teaching people how to reclaim a passionate marriage. So many of my students all over the world come to me with marriage crises. And in fact, it leads me to feel like marriage itself is in crisis in general sometimes. I think modern marriage is a misunderstood institution, and it's filled with all sorts of sabotaging ideas. Now, if you want to say no to that self-sabotage, and if you too feel the resentment building up inside you, then keep listening, because it will take some myth busting, it will take some rewiring, and it will take some skills that you maybe have never seen or even heard of before. And that's what it takes to master modern marriage. And in fact, that's why I have built Married You. And you can check it out at married-you.com. It's all about how to master modern marriage and create the marriage of your dreams with the partner that you've already got without dragging them to hours of therapy. Now, before we get into all things Married You, I just want to share a mindset shift that might help you right now today in your own marriage, and certainly in raising your children, both sons and daughters, for their future relationship. What I want to address is the myth of the independent woman. That's right. Now, many people might look at me from the outside and say, there's a strong, independent woman. I run my own business, I manage my own life, I'm a boss, right? And that boss babe mentality can certainly be seen through many of the things that I do. I embrace it and I enjoy it. And I am incredibly grateful to all of the equality and opportunity that feminism has afforded me. But there are some insidious and rather damaging myths and mindsets that sometimes come along with that boss babe package, right? They are just in the water that we drink. Last week, I made a podcast all about how feminism ruined my marriage. And I shared the 3 mindsets that I think we've been getting from feminism, just in the air, by osmosis, and what I think we can do to bust those myths and step forward into a marriage that you really enjoy and that fills you with energy. So if you're not yet subscribed to the Hi Fam podcast, make sure to head on over there and subscribe. Many people I know don't come from particularly radical or ideological homes, and yet they still have this concept of being a strong, independent woman that has its pluses, as I've outlined, but also has some minuses. And that's the thing I want to warn you about today. You see, students come to me from all over the world and they share a common crisis in their marriage. And that can really be summed up very simply. They want romance, but they've got resentment. It's that simple. Over the years, all of these self-sabotaging ideas and unhelpful myths kind of form a bit of a rot or a mold that can take hold inside of our marriages. And it can spread to even the most enlightened, developed people who do the work and educate themselves and are super new age and woo-woo and smart and, growth-oriented and spiritual, and they read a lot and they invest in themselves. Yeah. In the best of marriages with the best of individuals, you can often see that resentment has just piled up and created this heavy baggage over the years, and romance is nowhere to be found. And my friends, that is no way to live. You did not get married to feel resentful. You are not staying and building a home together to not feel any sense of romance, passion, desire, teamwork, cooperation, co-parenting, and friendship. No, we all got married because we had a big dream in our hearts to have a meaningful, lifelong relationship. But in our modern day world, there are some ideas that seep in under the rug and they sabotage that. And the myth of the strong, independent woman is one of those. It's a self-sabotaging concept. Now, are you allowed to be strong? Yes, I strongly recommend that you be strong. In fact, I teach mindset in order to develop that mental strength. And I personally lift weights in order to develop my physical strength. So yes, you're allowed to be strong. Are you allowed to be independent? Of course you're allowed to be independent. In fact, I teach independent play because I believe in really infusing children with a strong sense of self and independence from the earliest of ages. So it sounds like you should just be a strong, independent woman, right? Well, yes And you should also be an interconnected woman, right? Someone who feels interdependence with others. Now, not codependence. I don't want you to be so enmeshed and intertwined that it becomes unhealthy. But independence is also sometimes not healthy. Too much strength and independence can lead us down a mindset of separation. Like we don't need others. Like we're always going to keep them at arm's reach. We're always going to have that boundary, that wall between us and not create true intimacy. And that can be the death of a marriage. A marriage has to feel intertwined, interconnected, woven together. Like our very umbilical cords are tied in knots together and we are one. That feeling of being deeply connected to another person is the feeling that many of us yearn for and what led many of us to tie the knot to begin with. We wanted to be entangled with someone else, tied up with them. We wanted to tie our destiny to theirs. We wanted to be interwoven. We wanted to be connected. And then we have this mindset of the strong, independent woman, and that separates us. It causes us to separate our sense of self as completely separate from this person and constantly evaluating them from the side. Do I like them in my life? Do I not like them in my life? Which, again, is the death of any marriage. It causes us to have separate bank accounts, separate lifestyles, separate ideas and philosophies, and often values. And all of this separation is not what we want in a relationship. We want connection. We want interconnectedness. Now, why is this such a myth? Well, independence is a good thing, but independence has its limits. We're not actually independent creatures. None of us are. And as much independence as we can develop financially, emotionally, mentally, intellectually, etc., we can develop a lot of independence. You can manage your life all by yourself. If I just scratch beneath the surface of that, I will find a lot of interdependence. In fact, you will find that you are deeply dependent on others. Can you feed yourself? I bet you can't feed yourself from scratch, even if you have a vegetable garden, even if you make a lot of food from scratch, even if you grind your own flour, you're still dependent on the supermarket, on buying foods, on local farmers. You're dependent on others for your very survival at the most basic level. You're dependent on others to create the bricks that build your home. Even if you built your home yourself, I bet you didn't get all the materials yourself. You didn't go and cut down those trees, did you? You don't sew all of your own clothes. You don't make your own paper and your own ink and your own computer and your own phone. No, we are a web, a network of a society, and we are constantly dependent on other people. We need others for our very survival at the most basic level of food and shelter and protection. So it's silly to think of ourselves as fully independent. That's just the first thing, right? At the most basic level, let's just recognize that we need others. And that's a beautiful thing. They need us too. That's what we want to create, is that collaboration, that cooperation, that interdependence. But let's take it a step further. I think many of us, before we have children, envision ourselves as individuals, and we are. And by the way, I really am so grateful for the millions of people who have given their lives for us to have an individualistic society. I believe in free speech. I believe in the individual. I am not looking to reverse that. But we do need to understand its limits. We are not actually completely siloed off from other people. We influence others and they influence us. We need others and they need us. And a fully individualistic society runs the risk of creating an isolated society where individuals are lonely. That pang of isolation, it's endemic in our society. So many of my students talk to me about feeling lonely, about feeling severed off, about feeling disconnected and separated and alone. And that's the shadow side of an individualistic society. Now, before you have children, you might really think of yourself as just separate from other people. Like, I'm me, I own myself, I own my body, I own my choices, I own my mind, I own my space, I own my money, etc. Right? This kind of sense of complete autonomy, sovereignty, authorship, and ownership over yourself. Now, all of those things have a good side, as I've mentioned, but they also have that shadow side, which is the isolation and the separation from others. Many of us kind of recoil at the idea of belonging to someone. I don't belong to you. You don't own me, right? That's one of those feminist mindsets that's creeped in, and it has a lot of truth to it. But also, we yearn to belong to someone. Many of us want someone to feel ownership over us, to protect us, to take care of us. How many of us yearn to feel that sense of belonging, like I'm yours? we want to be needed. We want to be taken care of. We want to be protected by someone who says, you belong with me. And that doesn't go very well with the idea of us as completely independent individuals. Now, once you become a parent, this becomes so crystal clear, because especially if you go through a biological pregnancy and birth and breastfeeding, you learn that actually you're not independent at all. You learn on your own body, chemically, biologically, spiritually, and emotionally, that your baby is 100% dependent on you. And in many ways, you are dependent on your baby. You need your baby. You need to take care of your baby. You need to be close to your baby. That's what happens to us on a chemical level, is that we bond and that we belong. That baby belongs with and to and for you. You are together. You are intertwined. Your destinies are 100% tied up in knots. Literally, in the beginning, they are tied to you by the umbilical cord, right? You have that closeness, that connection. But even after they are born, you are deeply tied together. You are tied in so many different ways. On every realm of your life, from the most basic physical, right? The nursing relationship, for example, and all the way through to a spiritual tie that makes you feel deeply connected to this particular individual. And I think it erases any sense of being that strong, independent woman, at least from the perspective that you suddenly see that, no, we are interconnected. Humans are interconnected, and we are deeply interconnected with those that we are intimately related to. Our husbands, our children, our parents and siblings. These are the people who we have deep ties to. We're not independent of them. In fact, what happens in their lives, in their minds, in their relationships, in their worlds, influences us to a massive degree, on a massive scale. If you want that type of intimate connection with your partner, you have to let go of the idea of being two completely separate individuals. Of course, you're still two people, okay? 1 + 1 = 2. I'm not saying you are one, literally. I'm not suggesting that you're so dependent on each other that you need each other for every meal and for every waking moment, like a newborn needs their mother. But I am suggesting that if you want a touch of that intimacy and connection that a newborn has when bonding with their mother in your marriage, and I think that's a great goal and totally available to you, then you're going to need to lean in to the interdependent energy, the energy that says, I do belong to you. You do own me. And I own you. We are interdependent. We are connected. I'm not just a strong, separate individual with my own bank account and my own goals and my own friends and my own family, and you don't get involved in my life. We just live together. We just have babies together. We just sometimes consult each other on next steps and that kind of thing. No, we are deeply bonded. We are deeply connected. We are deeply intertwined. The second reason I think the strong, independent woman is a bit of a myth that we need to bust is because it suggests that strength comes from being alone. It suggests that being independent is the only type of strength there is, that there is strength in owning your own money, your own property, your own goals, your own schedule, your own self, and not giving two hoots about what other people think or say about it, not caring about others, not needing others, not relying on others, not leaning on others. I happen to think that our strength often comes from our togetherness. It comes from our vulnerability. It comes from our intimacy. Sometimes when you see someone who is so strong and independent and held together and siloed off, what you're seeing is someone who doesn't have a foundation of strength, is someone who is weak on the inside, who is too weak, in fact, to connect with others, to share, to open up, to be vulnerable, to lean on others. I know that you must feel deeply appreciated when a friend leans on you, when your partner shares something vulnerable with you, when a family member asks for help. There is strength to be found in our bond together, in our interdependence, in asking for that hug that you need, or that love that you need, or the appreciation you are seeking. There's incredible strength in the authenticity, the honesty, the direct, open line connection that is necessary for an intimate relationship. And when you say strong, independent woman, it runs the risk of sounding as though I'm so strong that I don't feel my feelings, that I don't share my feelings, that I don't share of myself. It can almost sound ungenerous or uncaring or very separate and siloed and aloof. But whilst there is some strength in being that lone wolf or in being that independent person, there's also a side of it that's weak, a side of it that isn't fully living the human experience of interconnectedness, of togetherness, of intimacy. Real passion and desire and connection, safety, love, joy, all the good things that you want in a marriage, all of that actually does not come from the independence. It comes from the togetherness. And that can become your greatest source of strength. I just want to say that again because I think our modern ears are so allergic, right? Or deaf to this fact. I believe that marriage can and should be your greatest source of energy and strength. And I believe that this idea that feminism has brought to us, that our strength comes from our independence, from our separation from someone else, is false. I know that I feel extremely strong and happy with myself when I'm, out there busting a move and being a boss babe. That's great. But it cannot compete with the strength and energy that I feel when I feel the close, deep, vulnerable connection with my husband. When I feel that we are a team, that we are united, that we are one, that we are complementary, that we are deeply supportive of each other, that we've created something safe and sacred and united, right? That is something that gives me tremendous and deep energy and strength and a feeling of a strong backbone and broad shoulders and the ability to face the world, to face my challenges and to handle adversity. Now, can I do all of that without him? Of course, I can. You can. People can. But it cannot compare to the strength of doing it with him, of having the connection. It's like, can I be a complete happy person without my children? Of course, yes. But it's pale by comparison to the type of warmth, vivid love and connection and joy that I feel in the meaningful relationships I have with my children. That's why I say that, being a strong, independent woman is fine, but it's a myth that that is where you're going to get your strength, that is where you're going to get that energy that you seek and the sense of deep love and connection that could be the antidote to all the isolation, loneliness, that dispassioned, disconnected, disillusioned sense of self. I want to fight that disenfranchisement that you might feel with marriage and help you to actually find the deep sense of strength and connection you could find within your relationship. And my final point why we should just bust this myth of being a strong, independent woman is because it's exhausting. Frankly, it's unsustainable. And this goes beyond marriage. It goes to the sense of community that we all need to build. Look, I like to take a lot on. I like to be independent. I like to be capable. I like to be a hostess. I like to make parties. I like to help others. I like to be an active member in my community. All of that is great. But sometimes I also need to lean on others. I need to just be tired and have a nap and let my husband take the reins with the kids. I need to be hosted rather than hosting, right? Our relationships need reciprocity. We need to be able to sometimes rest and sometimes take and sometimes receive and not always be on that giving, capable end of things. Now, so many of my students come to me with this perfectionistic mindset and these unrealistic expectations of what they should be able to handle, complete, and produce, right? What they should be able to cope with, to manage, to succeed with. The levels of energy and strength that they expect of themselves are sometimes a little bit warped. Like, you could be that strong, but you're also going to need that level of support. You see, I always say that our level of expectations of our children and of ourselves always, but every single time, need to match the level of support. You want high expectations? Awesome, me too. That demands high support. And that's true for you too. You want to be a strong, independent woman? You're also going to need to have a strong sense of support from your community and your marriage. That's what gives you the strength to be independent and strong in the first place. You don't go and do that without a deep sense of connection with others, because if you do, that's what leads you to the midlife crisis, to the nervous breakdown, right? To the mental health issues, because you're not actually matching your output with your input. It's really simple math. I mean, if you drive a car, you know this. You use all your fuel up and then you need to fill the fuel up. Otherwise, the car won't keep running. I mean, you're not going to keep running as a strong, independent woman always. You're sometimes going to need to lean in, to relax, to rest, to put your head on someone's shoulder and to be held. You need to be fueled by love and connection and support. And so if you're feeling exhausted, that's why, because it's not sustainable to constantly be on the leading, giving, running, driving, captaining end of things without also knowing how to receive, without also knowing how to lean on others and to accept the support and the love that I'm sure people in your life would love to give you, starting with your partner. Now, you might be thinking, no, he doesn't want to give me support. He doesn't even see my struggles. But let me tell you how many of my students, and I can totally relate to this, have trained their partner not to support them, have trained their partner not to know when they're having a hard time, when they need a hug, when they need love. And instead, they run all sorts of manipulations and tests to see if their partner will be there for them and show up for them, which they inevitably fail at. And it leads to the resentment that we were talking about. When you pretend like you don't need the support, like you don't need the love, when it's a stiff upper lip, when you just keep stuffing your feelings down, when you don't know how to honestly, genuinely, and authentically bring about the support and love that you need from your partner, then you will be hungry for it. You'll be needing it. You'll be carrying this big baggage of resentment with you wherever you go. And you'll constantly be prodding and testing your partner, hoping that this is the time that he'll suddenly say that you're the queen and that he loves you and that he'd do anything for you and how can he support you? And baby, I see how tired you are. And baby, I see how hard you work. And baby, I see what a great mother you are. And you're yearning and wanting those words, but you don't know how to get them. So instead, you pick fights, you nag, and you drag. And that leads to the resentment building up more and more because he's never going to give you what you want from a nag and drag mindset. Instead, we need to flip all of that on its head and bring out a charm and disarm mindset. The mindset that absolutely receives, that brings about the type of support, love, connection, admiration, appreciation that you want from your partner and that frankly you deserve. All of us do. All of us deserve love and connection. But we're so inept at getting it. We don't have the skills and we don't know how to get it. And so we settle for a humdrum reruns of the same conflicts and the same arguments that end with the same pain and frustration and just layer more and more resentment on. If you'd like to learn those skills in a effective way that you never saw at home, that you never learned in university, that you certainly won't see in popular culture, then head over to married-u.com. Married University is the place to get those skills and really learn how to create the marriage of your dreams with a partner that you've already got. And the cool part is, he doesn't even have to know. This is something you can do all on your own. I hope this has been helpful for you. I would love to hear the most helpful thing from this video in the comments below. Make sure to share it with someone who you think might find it an interesting beginning of a conversation that you can have. And if there was something you strongly disagreed with or that you have questions about, then I'd love to hear those too, and I will use those in future videos. Much, much love. Keep on living that high fam life.